Good morning. Welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting. Today is Friday, August 8th. I'm the chairman, Councilmember Mitchell Englander, and I'm also joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Joe Buscaino and Councilmember Mike Bonnet. So we've got a pretty lengthy agenda this morning, and so I'd like to get through it so we can get to council on time, but we've got some critical issues pending before us this morning, and some very exciting ones as well. And with that, I'd like to thank the members of the public that are here this morning for coming in early. Yes, thank you, Mr. Herman. And particularly our rank and file police officers and firefighters and our first responders that are here as well to support their agenda items. And also we've got some distinguished commissioners, fire commissioners that are here this morning as well. I'd like to thank them too for coming out as well. So thank you so much. With that, colleagues, I've got a number of items for consent. We've got some that have been called special for cards. I'm going to go through the consent items, let you know which ones are called special for cards. We'll hold the items that were called for cards last on the agenda. So item 6, which I had on consent, will be held for cards. Item 7, there are no cards, so we'll go ahead and put that on the consent item. Item 8, called special for cards. 9, there are no public comment cards, so that will be on the consent agenda as well. Item 10, called special for cards. Item 13, no cards, consent item. Item 14, called special for cards. 15, called special for cards. So with that, items 7, 9, and 13 will be before us. Before we open the roll, we will also let everybody know that if you are here to speak on a particular item, please fill out a comment card. All comment cards, including general public comment cards, should be submitted by now that we've started the meeting. So we'll go ahead and close the submission period now for any cards. If you haven't filled out a card yet, we'll go ahead and note that you did fill out a card and we'll file it, but we won't be accepting additional cards at this time since we've opened the agenda. And we'll go ahead and take general public comment last as well. So those items are before us, colleagues. We'll go ahead and approve those without objection. That'll be the order. I'd like to also thank Councilmember Mitchell Farrell, who is with us this morning as well, and we do have a quorum. With that, we're going to go ahead and take item 1 first, and we do have general public comment cards. And Mr. Clerk, if you can read in the record, item 1.
Morning, John White, City Clerk. Item 1, communication from the Mayor relative to the appointment of Assistant Chief Ralph Terrazas as Fire Chief, LAFD.
Okay, and Mr. Clerk, I believe that you've got a special guest here joining you this morning as well that you'd like to introduce.
I do. This is my son, John Diego White. He's here of his last Friday summer vacation.
All right, John.
Fantastic. Yeah. The most important thing, bar none, is family. So we appreciate, it's an honor to have your son here with us, joining us today. Thank you. Okay, with that, we've got a number of speaker cards. Noah Weiss, Herman, come on up. John Howland, if the three of you want to please come up and take a seat at the table, all three of you, that would be great. Good morning.
Good morning.
Whoever's ready.
Council, good morning. I'm here to, my name is Noah Weiss, and I'm here basically to support the nomination of the fire chief. I think it's important, obviously, that we have a competent fire chief, but I also did want to bring to his attention in this public forum the situation with the and the need for adequate fire protection relative to the Rancho holding situation. Again, for those who aren't familiar, we're talking about 25 million gallons of butane stored in two 12.5 million gallon tanks operated by an entity that is financially insolvent, with that lacking any kind of proof of adequate insurance. And we're in a situation where so far the best that we've been able to obtain is a council vote relative to putting on the fire department website the fire department's inspection of their risk management program once every 3 years. I think the fire department can and should, and I've had discussions with the fire marshal on this. I think he's very concerned with what these porous border situations. It's very easy. It's a couple of bullets in there, and all of a sudden we're within a stone's throw of the port. I think that this committee in terms of in working with the new fire chief to be able to provide for some open and transparent discussion here relative to a meaningful way to try to confront and resolve this problem, requiring insurance, telling the port not to do business with insolvent entities, basically directing the port to abide by the Tidelands Trust, because these rail cars that are basically being transported through the port nobody knows what's going on, where they're going. I think that is a public safety hazard that this committee basically needs to look into. I've given this committee a recent report here relative to Warren Buffett's effort to try to get the rail companies insured through federal legislation. Well, you know, that's why Warren Buffett is Warren Buffett. He'll protect his interest. All I'm asking is for this committee to protect the public interest, and I think requiring a permit, using those fees in the permit to pay for the cost of adequate inspection would go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm John Helen with the Central City Association. Central CCA is a business advocacy organization representing 450 businesses employing over 350,000 people in downtown and throughout the region. Downtown is currently home to more than 50,000 residents with 5,000 residential units under construction and 13,000 more in the pipeline. And this construction is bringing much needed jobs and housing to the area. LAFD has been a sticking point and an obstacle to building these needed and wanted residential and commercial projects in downtown and elsewhere in the city. CCA has been gratified that Chief Terrazas has already been proactive in reaching out to us and to our members to learn more about the difficulties that developers, architects and engineers, and the construction industry in general has had in working with LAFD and its inspectors when they try to move their projects forward. Safety is a top priority for all of us, and CCA is heartened by Chief Terrazas' desire to cut needless delays at LAFD while still maintaining the highest level of safety for current and future building occupants. CCA is proud to support the appointment of Chief Ralph Terrazas and urges your unanimous support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. And again, Chief Ralph Terrazas, welcome as the new head of the fire department. Congratulations on behalf of the public's interest in your recommendation and appointment by the mayor. Again, we know that you will provide us with comprehensive fire and emergency services that are always rendered, always in need for the public. More so for people who are elderly, more so for people who are disabled, and more so for those of us who are the taxpayers in Los Angeles who acquire and render all services, all programs, and needed services. Again, I emphasize needed services because now that we have Mr. Terrazas in here, he knows the difficulty of how the city can budget and mismanage his budget to provide our fire department with the most important tools, and that is their comprehensive tools and equipment that they use to save and protect our lives in our streets in Los Angeles. Also, I'm sure his interest is to secure our safety to not allow fast-track permits on any buildings without inspection by our fire department. So let us not forget and neglect the infrastructure as well as what I'm talking about when it comes to permits for the red flag and waving away the rules, because it is a necessity and a comprehensive plan that the fire department take every step to initiate their investigation under permits in order to protect us. Take, for example, the pipelines nowadays that are over 100 years old. UCLA wouldn't have drowned had the fire department been involved in their everyday checkups on fire hydrants and pipelines and where the shut-off valves are. That's my point.
Great, thank you. And final speaker card, Frank Lima.
Council members, good morning. My name is Frank Lima. I proudly serve as a fire captain and president of United Firefighters of LA City. We represent more than 3,000 members, and on behalf of them, I'm honored to represent. I'd like to express our support for the confirmation of Ralph Terrazas on his selection as our new fire chief. We welcome him as our leader and are hopeful that this department will regain some continuity and consistency with this appointment, and we are looking forward to a strong working relationship with the chief. I also want to take a moment to thank Interim Chief Jim Featherstone, who did a good job stabilizing a decimated fire department he inherited, and we thank him for his service. The LAFD has the finest firefighters, paramedics, inspectors, and dispatchers in the country. Chief Terrazas has a distinguished 31-year career with the fire department. As an early young firefighter in the early 90s off probation, a new Captain 1 came to our station in Crenshaw, and we had the opportunity to work together for several years, fight fire together. And that's important. Even Councilman Buscaino caught us collaborating the other day, eating together. And while UFLAC has not always agreed with Chief Terrazas in the past, we respect his years of service and experience with the department and trust that he realizes the critical importance of working hand in hand with the rank-and-file labor organization in the field in order for our department to begin the rebuilding process together. As you know, we remain the most underfunded big city fire department in the country, and over the past 5 years, we've lost nearly 600 firefighters and paramedics. Engines, ambulances, trucks were permanently closed and still puts our community at risk. Previous fire chiefs neglected to stand up for the community and the rank-and-file firefighters in the field. We don't ever want to see this happen again. All these matters are matters of public safety and firefighter safety. So on behalf of the dedicated inspectors that we represent, we urge you to support the confirmation of Chief Terrazas. It's our intention to work with the chief to rebuild our department and improve firefighter and public safety in our communities. With a strong partnership, we can be successful, and we're confident of that. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. And with that, if we can ask Chief Terrazas to come on up and have a seat. If I could, before asking you to give any opening statements, I had the honor and the privilege by the mayor of being asked to sit in on all the candidate interviews. And I want to thank the mayor for not only casting a wide net, looking very closely inside the department and outside, but handpicking what is a very difficult decision to make, one that is critical, that will affect, I think, forever the way that we operate as a city. First and foremost, the most important function in local government is public safety, bar none. And our firefighters, our paramedics are absolutely one of the most important things that we've got to focus on immediately. As was mentioned by Mr. Lima, the department has been decimated. We are on life support. And not just with morale, but rebuilding correctly. And what I saw, not just in those interviews, but talking to a lot of folks throughout the department, doing a lot of my own extensive research, meeting with you one-on-one, hearing and learning about a lot of your background and ideas. We need somebody who's going to be a change agent. We need somebody who's going to focus on innovation and leadership, who's going to look at new technologies, making sure that we have the latest equipment, that we can start restoring personnel correctly. And a lot of the things that you've done are really incredible in terms of your professional standards division, the disciplinary system. Most people don't know that you also hold a patent in brush fire rate of spread, a tool that you've also earned an Emmy Award for. So we have an Emmy Award fire chief before us. And I think in this new role, you'll certainly earn another one. With that, one of the things that's near and dear to my heart that we've had a lot of deep discussions on is I was the author of FireStat LA, and looking at how we develop metrics and a tool so we can measure everything we're doing within the department and create a transparency for the general public, for management, for the rank and file to understand exactly what things we can focus on, the collaboration effect of not just measurement and looking at all the data and having correct, verifiable, accurate data and looking at what we should measure, but also that collaboration that occurs, discussing it on a regular basis. And I'm delighted that you embrace that as well, be moving forward. If you could, just share with us your interest in this position and what you hope to accomplish as our new fire chief.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for those kind words. Council members, I'm honored to be here today. I believe my confirmation of me as an internal candidate is validation of your trust and confidence of the men and women of the LAFD. We will not let you down. I'm looking forward to working with this committee and this council and meeting the organizational challenges that lay ahead of us. To the men and women of the LAFD, be proud. We are members of the greatest fire department in the world, bar none. We have a history and tradition of meeting all emergency challenges, and together we will meet the challenges currently facing our department. Every day I'm inspired by you, and I'm honored to serve as your fire chief. Today's attendance is very humbling. I did not expect the level of support in this room that is here today. I'm inspired to work even harder than before. In terms of our vision for the future, I have a lot of ideas. To reduce it to a succinct statement, I want to make our department a metric-driven, a technologically sophisticated department that is reflective of the communities that we serve. That's my overall goal. I have a lot of specific goals that have to do with response times and additional resources and moving ahead with FireStat. I look forward to our future, and I'm very optimistic.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleagues. I'll start off with, not necessarily, well, sitting on my right, but not to my right, Joe Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for taking on the leadership role. I want to thank Mayor Garcetti for including you in the process. It's a great sign of collaboration between the mayor and the council. When the word was out that the mayor decided to select Chief Terrazas, we were dancing in the streets of Wilmington and San Pedro, and we are so proud of you, sir. You have a great history of commitment to the fire department, and to see you rise among the ranks is something that we are so proud of. As a Banning High School alum, you serve as a role model to the boys and girls in Wilmington and San Pedro that it is possible to rise to the ranks and achieve and be successful. I want to ask you, what are your top 3 priorities in the fire department, and how do you plan on implementing them?
The first priority is response times. That was what the controversy was about a few years ago. We're working hard to make that better. The first thing that we're doing, and we're currently doing, is FireStat. We're holding our officers accountable to getting out of quarters faster and being innovative to reduce response times. And as the best example I can share with you is we had a FireStat meeting out on the west side of town, and we noticed that the response times to the boardwalk were extensive on Saturday and Sunday. And the captain from the local fire station said, well, that's because the boardwalk's crowded. We can't get our apparatus to the patient. So subsequent to that, we created the bike medic program, and we've been hiring voluntary overtime to staff that every weekend. So that's a practical example of how we're going to positively implement the FireStat lessons that we take away from that process. So, and other things that we're doing in terms of response times is AVL, the automatic vehicle locator system. Right now, today, all our apparatus are transmitting their location to our dispatch center. And on the other end, at our dispatch center, we can track all our apparatus throughout the city. In March of next year, our CAD will be modified to be able to dispatch the closest apparatus to the incident that is created. So the first priority is response times. The second priority is restoring our resources, and that's going to be dependent upon our standards of cover document that's currently going out to an RFQ. I've read many of those, San Diego, Orange County, and others. I like the concept. What it does is create data in terms of response times by every first-in district. Once we get that data, we'll be able to understand where are our greatest areas of need, and then we should start prioritizing those areas in terms of restoring the resources. The third priority is being reflective of the community that we serve, and that goes to our hiring. As you know, we're under a staffing shortage situation that makes it difficult to staff on holidays and on weekends right now in the field. We recently have implemented the online application process. July 22nd through the 24th, we had 10,000 online applicants. Last Saturday, we had the written test. So we're moving fast to get the seats filled, and we have scheduled our first drill tower 81, on December 29th, a class of 60. So those are my three priorities, and I'm anxious to hit the ground running to make those things happen.
Thoughts on your recruiting efforts? Where do you see the future of recruiting within the Los Angeles Fire Department? We ultimately want a fire department that reflects the city of Los Angeles, specifically targeting women and seeing more women come through the ranks. What are your thoughts on that?
What I want to do is to reinstitute a program that I was a captain in the mid-90s. It was called the Female Tutorial Program. What we did is we recruited the females that are at college-level athletic teams. We looked at rowers, we looked at softball teams and soccer teams. We recruited them to come to our training facility, and it was Monday through Friday. We would do weightlifting, we would throw ladders, we would mentor them in the written and the oral, and then we escorted them through the hiring process, basically. Many of the captains that we have today, the female captains, are a product of the Female Tutorial Program. So that's going to be an important piece of what I want to get moving in that general area. The second thing I want to do is to continue what I've been doing in Banning High School for the last 14 years. We had a fire academy at my old high school, Banning in Wilmington. San Pedro has, actually the police department has a great program that I want to leverage to assist us. They have a magnet high school program. 4 of those high schools throughout the city are schools that allow students to become future police officers. I want to do that as well. The return's going to take a little bit longer because they're high school kids, but at the end of the day, when they graduate, I want to continue to mentor them and guide them into a career with the fire department.
And lastly, if I may, Mr. Chair, give me your position. There's lots of talks on changing the culture of the fire department and how it operates. Merging LAPD, LAFD 911 call centers, merging LAPD and LAFD CAD systems. Give me your thoughts on those two issues and your thoughts on LA County's model of using private ambulances for hospital transport. These are all hotbed issues. I know it's going to come before you.
Yes, sir. I've had a lot of discussions about merging the CADs. Our current CAD is a highly customized CAD system that is maintained by a person that lives in Canada. That causes me some concern because in the past it hasn't been the most reliable system. The PD CAD is a Motorola-based system. It has a redundancy in that they have 2 separate dispatch centers. So they can bring down one location and do maintenance on it and still have the other location up and running. So I am a firm believer that we need to integrate the CADs. And in my discussions, I think it's entirely feasible to do that. In terms of your second question about privatizing, I think that's the wrong path to take. I would continue our current model. I think the additional staffing gives us the surge capacity for those unknown, spontaneous, large-scale incidents like an earthquake. It gives us better control, and we retain the revenue that it does generate. If we privatize that, they're going to take away the revenue, and they're going to select the communities that they feel they can make a profit. We don't have that luxury. We have to provide that service citywide.
And last, sorry, as Frank Lima indicated, I saw you breaking bread with labor. How do you plan on maintaining that cordial relationship with labor?
Well, me and Frank go way back, like he shared with you, and we're competitors at nature, and usually I win. I've already thrown out the gauntlet that, hey, we're going to negotiate, we're going to compromise, we're going to reach middle ground, and if worse comes to worse, we're going to run, we're going to race, and the winner of the race gets to make the decision. He told me he's going to start training in anticipation of that, and I said, bring it on. So we're going to have standing meetings. I talk to him almost every other day right now.
Good.
But what I want to do is institutionalize, not only with UFLAC, but with COA, standing meetings on a weekly basis and make them more partners. In the past, we really haven't done that. I believe they're equal partners with us in moving the department forward.
Fantastic. And without being biased, who has the best mustache, you or Chief Beck?
Don't answer that. I'm going to cut you off on that one. All right, so that's actually not on the agenda. That's scheduled for the next Public Safety Committee meeting. So with that, no, thank you. And I was fortunate to have the opportunity, not only one-on-one, but sitting in the roundtable discussions with the mayor's team and the selection team and our recruitment team of going through all of these issues in great detail. So I appreciate that you brought up a lot of these issues. There's certainly a lot more. We're also going to have the opportunity, colleagues, if you'd like, not only in this committee, but following this committee, we'll have our new chief coming to City Council for full confirmation, and we can ask questions there as well. And always to my left, Councilman Mike Bonnet, please.
Proudly to your left. Proudly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief,
Good morning.
thank you for being here this morning. Congratulations on the nomination. Congratulations on what I am certain will be a unanimous confirmation in a little over an hour. We had an opportunity to sit down and have a discussion, which was great. It was a robust discussion for sure. We found a lot of room to agree, few areas where we disagree,
Yes, sir.
and some area where we got some stuff to talk about, and that's good. I love your commitment to the city. I love your commitment to the Los Angeles Fire Department. I was very glad to hear your willingness and your plan to work with labor and the Command Officers Association. As Mr. Englander outlined, this is a time of enormous challenge in this department. It has been decimated. I think we all see that, and I think we all feel that in different ways in our district. As I discussed with you, I live in terror of the risk of fire in the Santa Monica Mountains, in Brentwood, and in Palisades, where service has been cut back to levels I find life-threatening and unacceptable. One of the things that I really want to see is the department restoring services that were cut in the past few years. There's a bit of a tension, I imagine, between restoration and reform, or some sort of hybrid of the two. Where do you want to see the department going?
I agree with, number one, I share your concern about our areas where we've lost resources, especially in the brush areas. But the way we move forward is using metrics to our advantage to justify our decisions and to remove as much of the politics as possible and rely on the data to support where we need to replace those resources first. I think we need to embrace technology. I think it's an ability to maximize our output, and it makes us more efficient in many areas. And lastly, of course, to be diversified as well internally to reflect the communities that we serve. And I'm confident we can make progress in all those areas.
You mentioned an incident on the Venice Boardwalk and having the folks respond quickly because you had the bike medics.
Yes.
And I think that's an excellent incident to illustrate both the promise and the challenge of doing things right as we restore services. It is a known factor that there's big crowds at Venice Beach on the weekends, and it was a very smart and wise deployment on the department's part to have the bike medics. That was awesome. I am so glad that happened. Someone was able to respond to that stabbing at the drum circle very quickly. At the same time, though, as we discussed when we met, it took about a half hour for a vehicle to get there because Venice's Station 63 was otherwise deployed, so they had to come from Station 69 in Pacific Palisades. And because of the extremely difficult and challenging ingress and egress issues from Pacific Palisades and some of the profoundly impactful traffic and construction projects on the west side, it took half an hour for that unit to get there. So the bike medics was a great solution for that particular incident at the boardwalk. But we know that the northern part of my district and the mountains and the canyons of Mr. O'Farrell's district and other districts are at great risk. We also know with some certainty that ingress and egress to the northern part of my district is increasingly challenging, whether it is sunset traffic or the impacts of the construction from the Expo line or the fact that there are DWP projects that have shut down lanes on the major north-south thoroughfares, Centinela, PCH. Santa Monica is going to be shutting down the Santa Monica Incline, which is going to choke Santa Monica Canyon with traffic so that as the alternative ingress-egress point to the Palisades, there will not be room for an emergency vehicle to get by. There's no way for cars that are choked there to pull over. So how, as we move to a metric-based system, do we evaluate and factor in geographic isolation and the inherent challenges of ingress and egress?
Yeah, you've described a very problematic situation. I agree with your concern. We need to look at things, like I mentioned previously, leverage technology. When I map quest things now, it tells me where the roadblocks are and the closures. We need to use that, number one. It optimizes our current resources. Number two, we might look at pre-deploying resources in terms of, like the bike medic example. We could have an ambulance attached, standing by on those high, busy days on the weekends on the boardwalk. So we would eliminate the time delay for a farther away responding resource to come to. So if they're standing by, the medic has a patient, they bring the patient to the ambulance, they're already there.
Just to be clear, the situation I'm asking about isn't folks from the Palisades getting to Venice for an incident. It's if there's a fire in Palisades or on Mandeville Canyon, with the ingress-egress challenges and that geographic isolation, with our deployment cut, with an engine company missing, how do we get folks there?
Well, the ultimate answer is we restore our resources and bring them back to the area. Until we get there, we've got to be creative. When we have red flag days, we move up people into the area to be ahead of the curve. Eventually, though, the long-term solution is additional resources.
Okay, good answer. I want to talk a bit about tech. You probably, we talked a little bit about technology. You probably wouldn't characterize yourself as incredibly tech-savvy personally, right?
Correct.
That's generally been my experience with a lot of the brass at the fire department, and I think that builds in a reluctance to embrace the full potential of technology. As we discussed, I'm not at all wild about the tough books, and I see a lot of problems with the rollout now, and it's an inflexible type of hardware that you can't adapt very quickly, unlike others. Given that you don't live and breathe tech the way Mr. Englander does, who gets up and reads CNET first thing in the morning.
Second thing.
Not going there. What are you going to do to make sure that you have the right people doing the right job to lead the department technologically?
Well, first thing we need to do is hire a chief technology officer. Absolutely. I've already had meetings with Maggie Goodrich with PD to discuss that. After that, we need to build the staff, and then I want a technology strategic plan. That is the first immediate step. It's already in the budget. We need just to move forward and get it done. But to the direct question about iPad versus ToughPad, I want to bring back the Pepsi Coke challenge and put them side by side.
I'm looking forward to it.
And we're going to do that, and we'll see. I'm not committed either way. Whatever the outcome of that challenge is, we need to go in that direction.
You talked a little bit in response to Mr. Buscaino's question about the CAD merger. We talked a little bit, and I'd like to hear your thoughts for the record about whether or not the dispatchers themselves should be civilian or sworn.
I want to bifurcate that issue, technology and labor. I don't want the labor issue to impede the progress of the integration. So I'm going to table that. What I want to do is integrate the CADs to get a more reliable dispatch center. The labor piece, that's down the road, years, maybe never.
Okay. I'm getting the hook, so I'll conclude with just one thing. You mentioned the RFQ for the standards of coverage.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to note that when the council considered that, they did direct that before that RFQ or RFP went out, that it come back to this committee. So it was released prematurely, and Mr. Englander and I are going to have a motion this morning in council asking for it to be withdrawn so that this committee, labor, the public can have an opportunity to weigh in on how it is shaped.
Okay, I support that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to congratulate your selection by the mayor. And we had a really great discussion when you came to my office, and I appreciate that. I feel very good about your appointment. A couple of things. I want to also mention Interim Chief Featherstone's service. It was a real pleasure working with him as the interim chief, and he really helped stabilize the entire department. So I just want to mention that. And two, I would never, ever count out Frank Lima on anything. And we have 15 agenda items, so I'm not really going to ask you questions, but things that will be coming up that we'll talk about in detail, no doubt, will be the hiring, recruitment, and training, and getting up to speed so that once we do have the resources restored, we'll have enough firefighters to actually staff them. And all of my colleagues brushed upon issues that are very important in the 13th District, including the hillside areas and Fire Station 20 of particular concern. I love giving this example. The time I was there, and everyone was on call, and I was the only individual at the fire station holding down the fort while the other resources returned. And they've been put upon, and morale has been very low historically there over the last handful of years. So that's something that we want to address definitely in greater detail. And really, those are the big things that I'm going to want to explore further once you're confirmed. So I congratulate you. I look very forward to working with you and welcome this promotion. I think it's a real solid appointment.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
With that, colleagues, I think that wraps up the discussion. I'd like to ask our junior clerk how he would like to proceed. Sir?
With a verbal vote of the members, sir.
Great. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, sir. So with that,
Firefighter. Better than me.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
Councilmember Bonin.
Aye.
And I vote aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, sir. We'll see you in council shortly.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. If I could ask the public, as you leave the room, we are still in committee, and we've got a very lengthy agenda, so if you can keep your voices down as you exit, we truly appreciate it. Congratulations, Chief. We'll see you shortly. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Junior Clerk. Appreciate that. Well done.
Item 2, communication from the Mayor and Ethics Commission report relative to the appointment of Ms. Helen Lung to the Police Permit Review Panel for the term ending June 30, 2015.
Great. Thank you. Mrs. Lern, if you can please come on up. Good morning.
Good morning, council
Thank you.
members.
How do you follow that, right?
I know.
Actually, this is critically important as well. Police Permit Review Panel, which oversees so many functions here in Los Angeles and all the bars and nightclubs, quality of life issues, permits. It is incredibly complicated and incredibly important, and your resume is very impressive. And so I want to thank you for the opportunity to step up and volunteer and serve on this very important policy committee. With that, you certainly got my support, and I want to see if any of my colleagues have any questions, but before that, if we could just open it up for a statement as well.
Good morning, council members. I'm honored to be considered to serve on the Police Commission's Permit Review Panel. It's in my previous lifetime, I've had the honor of working with LAPD, working closely with senior lead officers, and with Mr. Richard Tifang alongside Councilmember O'Farrell, and I understand the importance of public safety, especially in public interest. So my current role as a Director of Social Impact at LA Moss, a nonprofit community design firm. I work closely in partnership with community-based organizations in South LA and Councilmember Buscaino's district, as well as in Northeast LA, and I look forward to providing geographic diversity as well as a community perspective to ensure that the rules and permits and regulations that LAPD has the privilege of upholding is in line with public interest in a way that makes sense and is efficient. I hope that my academic training as in public policy and urban planning, and not as a lawyer, provides a different dose of perspective. So I look forward to serving on this board, and I thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions from my colleagues?
Comment?
Yes, please.
I have to comment because Helen is someone who is near and dear to me. A Council District 13 constituent, a friend who I've known since high school, and have watched blossom into this impressive young professional who was raised in Elysian Valley and has chosen a career of just giving back. And so I'm just so impressed. And I was looking at your resume. Since I was your district director gosh, what was it, 8 years ago now. You've accomplished so much since then, and it seems like it was yesterday. So, colleagues, I have observed Helen just evolving into this very impressive young professional who has so much to offer and so much to give. I can't recommend her confirmation highly enough. Thank you, Helen.
Great. Wow. So are you suggesting that you support her?
Yes, I'm hinting very heavily.
I just wanted to clarify, you've known her since she was in high school. You guys weren't in high school together.
Well, I was just a few years ahead of her. Full disclosure.
With that, we'll go ahead and support your confirmation without objection, and that'll be the order. Congratulations, and we'll see you in council shortly as well.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Before we did vote, we had a card. I do apologize. So you can stay in the room if you like, but we'll reconsider that item so we can hear. We're going to have 1 minute on all items because we've got a lot of items left, so I want to make sure we get through all the speakers as well. And Herman, you had to fill out a card. Do you still wish to speak on her confirmation? Okay, come on up.
Well, Ms. Helen Lung, welcome to the family of Los Angeles. Hopefully you will conduct business on behalf of the public and in our interest with all due respect that the mayor appointed you on this ethics commissions for the purpose of a police permit review panel. And I'm sure that because of this long await of the vacancy that has been long going and been waiting, hopefully Eric Garcetti will stick around and fill all the vacancies so that the city business of Los Angeles can go forward instead of being stagnant in its slow approach to business-friendly Los Angeles. So thank you for taking this initiative for this opening, and we're looking forward to hearing and seeing what actions you will take on behalf of the public's interests.
Great. Thank you. Why don't you stay right there because we've got some more cards from you as well, but we'll go ahead and this item is again before us. We brought it back for public comments, so without objection, that'll be the order. So you are approved once again. That's twice in one day. So great. Thank you very much. You've got, we'll go ahead and put your 2 more minutes on the clock for you, which will complete all your cards. Two. You've got a card on item 4, item 5, item 6, item 8, 10, 12, and 14. Those are before you.
You want me to crunch them in within 2 minutes?
If you'd like, or you can do it all in a minute, whatever you choose.
I'll take it 1 minute at a time.
You got 2 minutes total for all those cards.
Okay. So then let's just fast forward to the last 2 minutes on item 15, so I can go on with my business for the day.
I have his card here, Councilman.
Okay, that was turned in after we had already submitted all the cards. So
15 you have in your hand?
I do not have 15. That was submitted after all the cards were already turned in. We closed the card submission period.
It wasn't written in black ink, sir? All right, well, you're running my time, so let me go back to the most important thing, emergency services. The comprehensive fire and emergency medical service within the jurisdiction limits for a period of July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2017, with the option to extend the term of the agreement for 2 additional 5-year terms. Well, we already initiated the terms and the agreement that we have a new chief of the fire department. And I'm sure he's going to rely on, as well as this item, rely on the attention of what we call resources, and also, as he put it, the high-tech technology so that we can fulfill what the matrix will do for our restoration and reform of our LAFD. Again, let us reflect on all communities, not just the affluential areas. You know, Mr. O'Farrell has a bad area, a lot of hills. CD14 has a lot of tough roads, and we're inundated with the so-called census of too many people living in garages and homes, and that's a health and safety issue alone. And as we see that Venice has only 2 stations within the remote area of Venice Beach, Venice Engine 63 and 69. Get it? 69. Anyways, I hope you guys can do better for the new system of health and services for us, as opposed to sitting on a brown thumb. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, members, on the consent, we have no other cards on items 6, 8, 10, 14, and 15. So items 6, 8, 10, 14, and 15. That'll close off the consent items unless any members wish to call any of those items special. So that'll...
I'm sorry, council members.
Yeah.
Items 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14?
Let me go through the consent items again.
Sure.
So that'll complete items 6, 7, and 8,
6, 7, 8,
9, 10,
9, 10,
13, 14, and 15.
15. Got it.
We've completed items 1 and 2.
On item 8, a CA report came in after the publication of the agenda. Do you wish to approve that as part of your action on that item?
Yes, that'll be for the ABC grant, and we'll go ahead and approve that without objection. Okay. That item is moved, and that'll take us to
Item 3.
item 3, Harris contract for EMS billing.
Item 3, CA report relative to an LAFD contract with Harris & Harris for the collection services associated with delinquent emergency medical service billing accounts.
Morning. If you can give us a brief overview. I know all the packages already been distributed with all the information to the committee as well. So I want to make sure, see if there's any questions on this, but if you can give us a quick, brief overview.
I'm Mark Davis with CAO's office. This is a contract with Harris and Harris through March 2016 for the collection services for the delinquent ambulance transports. The revenue that's projected for this should be $1 to $2 million per year. And this is the fire department needed to do a standalone contract with this because of Hipaa Compliance. This was piggyback with a contract that was already with the city with the finance, with the Office of the Finance.
Okay.
So this will carry us through March of 2016.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. And with that, let me ask the department, in terms of the Hipaa compliance, a lot of the things that have come up over the years is the fact that we've got all this debt, if you will, uncollectible debt. And then once it goes to collections, it still remains on the books because we can't write it off because of the HIPAA issues, while every other city was able to do it. And so, although this isn't technically directly that issue, it's related for discussion purposes. Does that clear up any of that at all?
Yeah, yes, it does. Salvador Martinez, the fire department, council members. What this does is it continues the ability for the department to refer uncollectible debt to our main collection agency. Previously, it was NCO. Now we're replacing that with Harris & Harris. We do project about $1 to $2 million annually. Mm-hmm. So although many of the debts that are they're being reviewed are attributed to people that have moved, homeless and other issues we cannot collect on. There are certain that we're still pursuing. So this takes that extra effort to focus on those that we can collect, and we do then collect that debt that we can. And quarterly, we report to the Board of Review. We've been very consistent about doing it over the last 3 years since the council gave us that authority to do so. So we have been drawing down and writing those debts off the books. So
right.
It's off.
Excellent, excellent. And lastly, just a quick answer, if I could. The $1 to $2 million, is that already in the fire department's budget this fiscal year? Or if this were collected, that would be the potential net new revenue. Is that then new revenue coming back into the city?
It's projected in our budget, sir, in our
It's already
revenue
projected.
collections. It's part of our total EMS. We projected
So then,
it would
if
be.
that's the case, that I would ask, if I could, that this item, in terms of collections, be put into the quarterly financial status reports to the Budget and Finance Committee, so we know if we're meeting our targets and we don't find out at the end of the year that we perhaps didn't. And so if we can add that item to the FSRs and how we're doing quarterly and meeting that projection, that would be great.
Fine.
So we'll go ahead and approve then the item with that particular recommendation and as amended.
Thank you.
And without objection, that'll be the order. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item 4.
Item 4, see a report relative to an agreement with the City of San Fernando for the Fire Department to provide comprehensive fire and emergency medical services within its jurisdictional limits.
Morning.
Morning, Councilman.
Chief.
Mario Rueda, Chief Deputy, Emergency Operations with the Fire Department. Los Angeles has been providing fire and emergency rescue services to the City of San Fernando since 1978. During contract negotiations in 2012, the City of San Fernando expressed an interest in renegotiating the contract. It was difficult to understand. It was unpredictable in terms of what we were billing. And as a result of those negotiations, what you have before you is a proposed agreement that uses assessed property values of both cities in relation to the LAFD's operating budget. This agreement provides full cost recovery for the city, an easily understood formula and predictability in what the city and the City of San Fernando both understand will be future fees. We are also including an addendum that will stipulate what the repayment of past due fees are. Any questions?
With that, I want to thank you, Chief. This has been an incredibly complex negotiation to ensure that the city is not only getting full cost recovery, but the residents and the businesses in the City of San Fernando are also getting quality response time and service, as well as no effect or impact at all in the surrounding communities. And so measuring and going out there and spending that type of time and energy and the resources that you've put into this, that I've asked you to put into this, you went far and above that. And on behalf of this committee and the city, we truly appreciate that. It's critical to have these partnerships with surrounding communities and continue the service that we've been providing since 1978. San Fernando is incredibly unique, and there were a lot of changes going on politically there while this was being vetted as well. So you had a lot of different folks at the top there in the leadership positions constantly changing and different opinions, and they had their own issues. But with that, you remained focused and professional in going through this, and I couldn't thank you enough. You really have spent quite a bit of time ensuring that we're well protected and they are well protected, and it's a balanced approach. While these negotiations were taking place, we did know that there was an arrearage of payment, what I will call intentionally, if you could, that because we knew that there would be adjustments. That has been audited and gone through with the CAO, and there's a good commitment from them. You'd indicated that there will be an addendum for the agreement for repayment on that. It's not part of this. Will that be coming as a full document, as an attachment before it comes to council?
Yes.
Okay. And how long will that take to put that together?
I believe the Ed Rose with the CIO's office, city attorney has been reviewing the document, and we're finalizing the package so we can submit it to.
So a week, 2 weeks. What do you think is a
2 weeks?
2 weeks? Okay, so we'll ask that this be scheduled in full city council in 2 weeks with that addendum. Any objection? Nope. Okay, then that'll be the order. And again, thank you and your team. It's been a team effort to continue to look into this in great detail and work with the city.
Thank you for your support.
No, thank you. All right, that will take us to item 5 for brush clearance appeals. With that, I just wanted to let folks know that are here on brush clearance items. This has already gone through a full discussion. It's gone through the full assessment process. There's been ample opportunity for residents to work with the fire department. We have 4 possible actions before us on these these annual brush clearance appeals. The fine and fees have already been placed upon the property owners. These are strictly appeals. During this appeal process, we hear only new information that the department did not hear or wasn't available, or newly discovered additional evidence offered by the property owner. That's what part of this process is. We confirm the assessment or reduce the amount based on the facts and the information presented before us, or the new information. We either decide to hear or decide the case based on the record and any, again, newly discovered or additional evidence, or we simply refer the case back to the hearing officer if the newly discovered or additional evidence is needed before a final decision is made. And so I just wanted to remind everybody of that process because it is unique, but it is one that's followed regularly and annually, and we've gone through these. In fact, the fact that we don't have 100 cards before us on this really hats off to the fire department because that used to be the case. And the fact that you've taken so much time and effort to work with so many individuals, to sit down with them and go through their information, really shows the depth and the breadth and the professionalism of what the fire department has done. This is a huge reduction from what's happened in years past, and it shows that all the front work and the legwork has been done to this effort. So I applaud you on behalf of this committee.
Thank you, sir.
So, please.
Committee members, Chief Storms, Mark Storms, Fire Marshal. I oversee, as part of the fire prevention, the brush clearance unit. As well, I spent 3 years as the battalion commander who oversaw it directly. So, Captain Knight is the commander of the brush clearance unit. All the accolades that you just gave the brush clearance unit belong to him and his staff for the yeoman's job that they've done. If you have any specific questions relative to the specific cases, Captain Knight works directly with the hearing officers every year. He's part of the panel that interviews the hearing officers, so he should be able to work with you on any question you may have.
Excellent, thank you. With that, we do have a couple cards and letters. The first one is from, is it Pinky? I'm trying to read the name, and I apologize. On Benedict Canyon Road. Oh, yes, please come on up. And if you could, your last name,
Clamore, sir.
I'm sorry?
Clamore.
More. Got it. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Sir, we just acquired the property on July 17th. A few days after, we went to do ocular inspection on it and found that there are brush clearances on this, so we immediately contracted the contractors to do the brush clearance. He started it on July 31st. He finished it on July 13th. We got him fully paid with the council checks and everything. We submitted all these things with the LAFD, and yet they still charge us for the cost of clearance despite the fact that we already paid and contracted another guy.
Okay, thank you. Did you receive that information or receipts from the contractor to prove that the work had already actually been done?
I have to look at the report. Do you have your APN number so I can get that information?
Oh, sure.
I can just stand by.
Yeah, I didn't have an APN number on the card.
Let me have this.
It's Assessor's ID number 438-200-1023. Package number?
This is what I'm going to do. If you want to, while you're looking that up, and if you want to, we'll go ahead and hold your item. If you guys can go to the side for a moment, and while you're looking it up to see if you actually have those receipts, or if in fact it's new information that we didn't have in the file, We'll come back to that. In the meantime, we do have also a letter on another item from Leon. Is Leon here?
If it's Ryan Gold?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Ryan Gold? Not here. Okay. And that letter was submitted. It'll be submitted for part of the as part of the file, but it does not have any new information or receipts attached, and they're not here. So perhaps if they come to council, we can have that opportunity when it comes to council if they want to show up for that and walk us through their argument on the appeal. With that, we have a number of other items before us on item 5. Did you find the file, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's on page 50 of our book here. It appears that they did hire a company, and they're saying that they cleared their property on August, or paid someone on August 13th of 2013. However, the department record indicates that the subject property was actually inspected on May 22nd of 2013 and was found in violation, and a second inspection was done on July the 18th of 2013. The work that was actually done on the property was not sufficient to meet the needs of the to be in compliance with the brush clearance requirements, and since we've already made 2 visits to the property, on the third visit we abated the hazard on August the 23rd of 2013. And the decision by the hearing officer basically is stating just that, is that while the company would claim that the property, that they were not the owner of the property of the first notice when they purchased the property, but the appellants provided proof to show that they had pictures and that they had done some work actually on the property, but it was not sufficient to meet the needs of the fire department's requirements completely. So therefore, they were totally assessed for the full amount due, for $3,000.
Okay, so it would be a recommendation to deny the appeal and support the action at the...
I recommend that we uphold the decision by the hearing officer.
Okay, and with that, the information that was submitted isn't new information, then it's part of the file, and it shows that...
Correct.
As you walk through us. In
the same information was...
So we'll go ahead, and that'll be the order per recommendation to deny the appeal and uphold the decision.
Correct.
That's the appeal for which property?
You did, and we had at the time and submitted... I'll give you another minute on the clock if you'd like. Okay, so we won't. We haven't voted yet, so we'll go ahead and give you your last minute. Sure, absolutely. And this is not a hearing, sir. This is public testimony. So again, we asked if you had any new information. The information you submitted was clearly part of the file, and the information that.
My point is, if we hire a guy...
Before we begin, Captain Knight, you're referring to their parcel or the parcel in reference to Mr. Reingold?
No, I'm referring to their parcel.
Thank you, sir.
Not Mr. Reingold, yes.
Thank you.
We hire a gentleman that for the last 30 years, all he do is brush clearance. He's well known by the fire department. He went to the job and he cleared it. What is the point of somebody to hire somebody and you guys come and claim right now they changed the story? Prior to that was we never cleared it. Right now, after the hearing, is we cleared it, but it was not clear good enough. Isn't that make sense if you already clear it and not do it clear enough? Maybe to send another letter instead of charging an insane amount of money, $3,000 to clear it after we already paid somebody. To come and somebody walk over there and he can claim, oh, I clear it. What's the point? He got free money. We hire a guy, we have proof we pay, we have picture we clear, somebody who that's all he do for a living, his business called brush clearance. That's all he does, all year round. And somebody come and claim, well, we sure somebody went there and he did his job. He didn't do nothing, he's just stealing money from us. That's all this guy is doing.
Okay, thank you, sir. So with that, brush clearance is a matter of life and death. It's not just a matter of clearing some brush. If somebody this is not for discussion, sir. Thank you very much. I take this issue very, very, very seriously. For the fire department to go out there more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times, having to go out there to complete a job correctly that wasn't done sufficiently, how many, if I ask for the record, how many properties are asked to actually conduct brush clearance on their own in the city of Los Angeles?
excuse me, there's 144,000 parcels in the city.
144,000 parcels in the city of Los Angeles.
Defined high-severity zone, yes, sir.
And before us today, how many are appealed that they didn't do it correctly?
This here is, I think it was 48 that
48 out of 144,000.
Yes.
And one that came today to say that they hired somebody that didn't do it correctly. So with that, we'll go ahead again. There wasn't new information provided, and uphold the recommendation from the department. Right.
So let me understand that we're going here by statistics. So if they're doing...
No, we're not doing it by statistics. We're doing it...
Just did.
This is not for argument.
48,000 out of 140.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
By statistic, you decide they can't make mistakes.
Now you're disrupting the meeting.
I'm not disrupting the meeting. You just don't want to...
I'll ask you to leave the meeting if you're going to disrupt the meeting. Thank you. Okay, so no other items on item 5?
And the disposition on the property reference and letter from Mr. Reingold?
Yes, we'll go ahead and deny the appeal.
So the 2 appeals before us have both been denied?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, that'll be the order without objection. Okay. Item 11, I believe, is just a request to direct the city attorney to draft an ordinance per the Board of Police Commissioners and then to report the recommendations. If there's no questions on that, do we have any questions on that item? No questions? Okay, then that'll be the order without objection. We'll go ahead and approve item 11.
11? Okay.
Item 12, video retention period. If we can ask, and that's the last item, but we'd like please ask the department to come up.
Good morning. Maggie Goodrich, CIO for LAPD, and with Sergeant Dan Gomez from the Tactical Technology Section.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is a request for to look at revising and looking at protocols for data retention.
This was the request that you had made back when the in-car video contract was approved for Phase 2 in Operations Central Bureau, when we started looking at the cost of retaining video for 5 years, and you had asked if we could take a look at possibly reducing that. The city attorney issued an opinion that indicated that 2 years would be sufficient to meet the various statutes of limitations, and the draft ordinance is before you on that. However, I would like to ask that if the committee agrees that it be sent back to the city attorney for one more revision. It's limited right now as it's written to just in-car video.
Okay.
If it could be broadened to cover all digital imagery, that would help us with things like body-worn cameras.
Okay. Excellent. So we should include in-car video, body-worn video, jail surveillance video, building security imagery, all the things, city facilities, and perhaps even look at if we could not just police facilities, but also cameras that monitor City Hall, libraries, all fixed post, license plate, recognition imagery, anything that surrounds this space.
Yes, please.
Okay.
A quick question. One of the values of having the video stuff is to be able to provide a defense for our officers if they're accused of misconduct or anything like that. The types of charges that these are meant to give our officers some protection from, is the statute of limitations shorter than the retention period? I want to make sure that we don't have a retention period that's so short that after that period is over, we've lost our ability to defend ourselves because someone files an action or claim against the city after that.
My understanding is the city attorney considered all of that when they drafted the opinion, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if there's any claim or action, that's kept indefinitely. If there's any, so we'll go through, that's all in the policy. And I think,
And again, the 2-year retention applies to video where nothing has occurred. If there's a use of force, a complaint, et cetera, it's retained indefinitely.
it's a step policy,
Yes.
in essence. So I thank you for so much work that you've put into this as well. And thanks for sticking around this morning. I know it was a long agenda.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go ahead with those recommendations and send it back. And then what is a respectable amount of time, do you think, that you need for the city attorney to...
Mr. Chair, what I would ask is that the committee, if it accepts the recommendation from the police department, which I understand it wants to do, is to ask this ordinance to go to council with that recommendation of the committee to have the city attorney amend it to include all
Great. Okay, we'll go ahead.
imagery we will at the same time be working on it so that it can be turned back right around.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and do that then. We'll move it to the full City Council with approval with those changes and recommendations, and that'll be the order without objection. Okay, great, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, that concludes the agenda outside of general public comment. If you've submitted, if you submitted a general public comment card after the closure of submittal, we'll go ahead and note and file that you did in fact receive, we received your card. We have two general public comment cards then left. Noel and Herman, please come on up.
Good morning, residents of Los Angeles. I'm pointing out on old business under item number 8, how I was talking about the Department of Alcoholic Beverages Control for use of LAPD for the period of July 1st to 2014. $100,000, please.
That's a specific
This is
item?
general public
This is general public, then you can't speak on an item that was
That's
actually
old
on the
business
agenda.
relating to new business. May I continue? So, again, thank you for disrupting me. But the whole point I'm trying to say to you, Angelinos, is this. Look, Jose Huizar and those in the council chamber continue to give out permits for alcohol for businesses in Los Angeles. So the problem is not because, Commissioner T-Fank, if you're listening back in the background here, is this. The reason why we have hit and run in this city is because you continue to give permits for alcohol. And under Chief Beck, to sell a horse to this city without asking the public's interest in the sale and us buying it is an insult. Sir, Eric, get your BS together. Thank you. 1 minute.
Council, the issue relative to, I think, the Rancho facility is what happens if there is an accident? Who should bear the risk of loss, and whether it's appropriate for the public, basically, to bear that risk of loss. Now, Mr. Biscayano did not ask the chief about the extent and the nature of the fire protection at the port. That is and the surrounding environments. That's a very important issue in light of the potential, because stuff happens. Accidents happen. Right now, as I understand it, that contract with the port, with the LAFD, is under negotiation. I think that this item of Rancho, and this committee has something to say relative to that, should be put on the table in terms of providing adequate funds for the fire department related to the nature of the risk, and that nature of the risk can be identified. We're in a situation here where we've got use of Tidelands Trust assets contrary to law. We have the operating permit being not adequately lived up to. We have the rail spur permit being unlawful, and we have operation by a financial insolvent entity. The city is at risk, the people are at risk. It's not. Thank you.
Seeing no other items before us, that concludes the agenda, and we are adjourned.